Welcome on into a Thursday edition of the Baseball Insiders. That ticking trade deadline clock is going off in the background. Under pressure, several MLB teams are. We will preview the start of the second half by taking you through the teams that are under the most amount of stress as the deadline approaches. And of course, we will say the name Shohei Ohtani. And joining me, as always, is FanSided's MLB insider, Robert Murray. Robert, it's beginning.
It is beginning. I am very here for the next 3 weeks. The next 3 weeks are surely going to be absolutely freaking bonkers. I'm prepared to get little sleep, going to stock up on coffee, and here to break it all down with me is Adam Weinrib. Adam, how you doing, good sir?
Good. I'll break down your coffee consumption for everyone who's joining us. I assume I'm going to guess espresso in the morning. You like a little latte foam with a drawing in it, like a heart? No?
No, I am a straight up cold brew guy.
Me too.
And if I want to spice it up, I add a little bit of oat or almond milk. Yeah, I'm a very simple kind of guy with my coffee. I don't drink it warm though, especially in this Arizona heat. It's supposed to be 116 to 117 degrees, Adam.
I'm
Holy
a cold
Toledo.
brew. I'm a cold brew guy, whether it's 117 degrees or not. I'm actually excited. I'm moving. I'm a little, moving is not great, but I'm in too much of a coffee routine right now where I try to do Starbucks half the time and there's no alternative the other days. Like, I want a great local spot, and the spots around me right now are like Gregory's Coffee, which I don't know if you have. They're not good. There's a Dunkin', which Dunkin' cold brew, when they make it, like, sometimes you get it and you're like, that's pretty good. Sometimes you get it and you're like, that is motor oil. Like, that's absolute rocket fuel. I'm at like a 10K. Like, somebody the other day was telling me, like, we thought it might just be our Dunkin', and somebody was like, no, my hands were shaking. I got Dunkin' cold brew. I couldn't drive. It's like, oops.
Yeah, that's what I'll tell you. That's why at Dunkin' I only get one thing, and it's the blueberry iced coffee. It is abso-freaking-lutely nuts. It is delicious. Shout out to my buddy AK for that recommendation, by the way. He was an absolute G for putting that on my radar.
I've never done that. I used to do hazelnut swirl, but then people stopped knowing what it meant. Like, at a certain point, it meant hazelnut syrup. And then they were just like, hazelnut iced coffee with nothing? Got it. So I'd get some like black, very bitter hazelnut iced coffee. But you know what? I'm looking for that local spot. When my new apartment, I'll tell everybody where I live when I move in.
Do it, yeah.
And you guys can tell me where to get coffee. But if you are a betting enthusiast, or you want to be and you're not yet, that's actually probably the sweeter spot for us right now. If you're an MLB fan who wants to try Bet365, we have a promo for you. It's right there on the screen. All you have to do is deposit $10, place a $1 wager on any sport. You will instantly receive $200 added to your account in bonus bets, whether you win or lose. That's at least 50 Dunkin' Blueberry Iced Coffees. All you have to do is use the code BASEBALLIN to sign up. That's BASEBALLIN, I-N. By using that code, you not only receive the $200 in bonuses, you will also be directly supporting the podcast. And during the 3 weeks before the trade deadline, goodness gracious, do we need that support. So if you have not signed up for Bet365, join with the code BASEBALLIN, BASEBALLIN, and place that first bet. This offer is available for new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in most legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check the episode description for full terms of the offer. And Robert, the teams that are under the most pressure right now, the number one team, I think we're probably shaking hands on it, and this team could very much use some bonus bet money right now, or whatever they're able to convert into cold hard cash this offseason. Let's talk Angels right up top, because they're in the oddest spot for me without Mike Trout, with a pre-All-Star break slide. They're in the sludge pile among the wild card semi-contenders right now. A couple weeks ago, it would have felt ridiculous to trade Shohei Ohtani. We know Artie Moreno does not want to trade Shohei Ohtani, but this team has 3 weeks to decide exactly how far they want to go.
Yeah, if they're in a really interesting position, because if they trade Shohei Ohtani, there's no shot of them retaining him like as a free agent, or there'd be no way. So that basically be just losing Shohei Ohtani right now. That's why I think it's more likely that they explore buying, because they've already done it with Eduardo Escobar and Mike Moustakas. They can try to fill some different areas of need, can target some starting pitching. They can do an assortment of different things. But if I was running the Angels, I would seriously consider trading Ohtani. I think it would be the right thing for them to do. It would be a better haul in return than it would be for a draft pick that they would get when he leaves or if he leaves as a free agent. Um, and I think they got to be realistic with themselves because I don't think they have much of a shot at winning the World Series. As I've said before, and I'll say it again, I would be absolutely stunned if they do trade Shohei Ohtani. I just can't envision Artie Moreno being the owner who does that. But yeah, Perry Manassian there as their general manager is in a really interesting spot. It's a tough position because, he's got a half a year left to convince Ohtani to stay. He's also got to like balance winning now versus trying to maintain competitiveness in future seasons too. It's a really tough dance that he's got to do right now, but he's got 3 weeks to figure it out.
Well, he reunited the Joyce twins in this year's draft. That was pretty cool, but somehow it doesn't seem like that's going to be the most notable moment of his July. The Angels fans I know in my life are sort of ready to maybe trade Ohtani, maybe more ready than Artie Moreno is. They sort of see the writing on the wall. And that pessimism comes from being this sort of also ran with two of the greatest players in the world for the last 5 or 6 years. So I get sort of being beaten into submission by the fandom, but I do think it's probably more likely they buy a little bit more.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think they will buy. I'm very curious to see exactly how aggressive they are in terms of buying. It's tough too, because if you look at the Angels, no matter what in this, it seems like they've kind of lost they have not gotten to the postseason with arguably the best player in baseball history. And they're either going to lose him as a free agent, or they could trade him for what would be pennies on the dollar compared to what it was last year. Like there's still a chance that they can retain him as a free agent, but if they miss the postseason, then those chances just dwindle to nothing. It's a really tough spot, and it's unfortunate. And you got to see at the All-Star game, every fan base is going to start clamoring for Shohei Ohtani. It's only just beginning, and we're talking when that day comes, as I said, arguably the best player in baseball history is going to be a free agent, which is going to be one hell of a winter, let me tell you that.
Buster Olney today said he thinks the Yankees are going to push hardest for a trade at the deadline. I don't think that's interesting because I don't think they're going to trade for him at the deadline, but I do think it's interesting because whoever does trade for him at the deadline, the pressure transfers to you. You can't trade for him and not extend him. So the Dodgers want him this offseason. The Padres want him this offseason. So do the Mets. If the Yankees stepped in and traded for him, they can't sell their fan base on 2 months of Ohtani and then whoops, the Dodgers outbid us. So I think that's them signifying they're going to be in this offseason as well if you buy any of it. And I kind of don't buy any of it.
Yeah, I'm kind of skeptical about it myself, as they got a lot of big contracts on the books already. I mean, Ohtani, if they pursue him as a free agent, we're talking about, let's say 12 years for $550 million. I mean, that's just me throwing a number out there.
But honestly, a reasonable, crazy number.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about, but as you said, it's realistic. You have that on top of the Aaron Judge contract, on top of the Giancarlo Stanton contract, on top of the Garrett Cole contract, on top of the Carlos Rodon contract. That's a lot of big salaries on top of each other. That's why I'm pretty skeptical that they're going to be able to pursue him as a free agent. Maybe this trade deadline could be different, but I'm right there with you. I think I'm pretty skeptical about that.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. The Angels have 3 weeks to decide if they want to do the funniest thing of all time. The other teams I'm eyeballing, the Brew Crew, mostly because they're still the Fangraphs favorite to win the Central. They're probably the real favorite to win the Central. But how far are they willing to go to make up the 1-game gap right now with the Reds? How much do they believe in themselves? And they fractured the clubhouse in 2022 with Josh Hader. They fractured the clubhouse in 2021, apparently by trading Orlando Arcia, as Hader and Devin Williams said at this year's All-Star game. Do they want to take that risk again and trade some beloved talent, or are they going to be all in? I'm also looking at the Cardinals, as we have been for months. They're going to sell, but are they going to Nolan Arenado sell? Are they going to hard reset? Is this a business, as he said at the All-Star game, or are they going to be a little nicer to him? And then what about the Orioles? I mean, they're obviously not under that much pressure on the field. They're a front runner for the number one wildcard spot and potentially the AL East title. But this could be a special season if they press the right buttons with so many teams unwilling to do so. Are you happy if you're the Orioles probably being the favorites for the top wild card, or do you want the AL East? Do you want 100 wins? And how do you get there without mortgaging the future?
Yeah, so this is a lot to unpack here. I'll start with the Brewers here. I do not think they will sell off their major league roster. I think what they are likely going to do is look to improve the major league team because they learned the lessons last year of what it's like trading a superstar in the middle of a pennant run, and it cost them in the biggest way. And I think they learned some pretty valuable lessons there. And I can't envision them doing anything too big, not because it's not what they want to do, but like I don't believe in talking to teams right now that we're going to have that much star power on the move. That could change within the next 2 or 3 weeks, but it seems like the trade market is going to lack like a high-end piece and more complementary or like tier 2 players. So I think the Brewers are going to be in position to buy, but the Cardinals' position in their declaration that they are going to be sellers, from what John Mozeliak said the other day, that does change things a little bit because you look at their trade pieces. They got Jordan Montgomery, they have Jack Flaherty, they have Jordan Hicks. Giovanni Gallegos could be a guy who ends up getting some trade interest. Tyler O'Neill is a player that the Cardinals would be very open to moving. I think those are some players that you should watch for sure. And I also thought it was interesting because I think Mozeliak's exact phrasing was he doesn't know if there's going to be household names that are going to be on the move. And do you interpret that as Goldschmidt? Do you interpret that as Nolan Arenado? Like, what exactly do you interpret that as? As I've said, I don't think that either of those players are going to be on the move, but I think the likelihood is at least higher than what Ohtani's is. So perhaps, like, I'm sure there's going to be teams that inquire on both players. I mean, I think every contender should, because we're talking about two, I don't think it's a stretch to say Hall of Fame players. Mm-hmm. I don't think the likelihood is there, but who knows? If you listen, maybe you get an offer that you can't refuse, and that's the position that the Cardinals and John Mozeliak really find themselves in right now. And then what was it, the Orioles?
Oh, and I got my eyes on the O's. Yeah, they're just kind of a wild card in the whole thing.
Yeah, I honestly, they're close enough in that division. Like, they're right there with the Rays, who started off the season scorching hot, and I know they had that skid right before the All-Star break. The Orioles, to me, are in a position where they could get pretty creative and aggressive in addressing the rotation. I think that was their consensus biggest weakness entering the regular season, because they didn't really invest much there. I don't know exactly who they would pursue. You can look at a bunch of different guys like Shane Bieber, Dylan Cease. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. But Jordan Montgomery, Jack Flaherty, Lucas Giolito, there's a lot of starting pitchers in that tier 2 category, I think, could really help them out. So they should have an assortment of options. I do expect them to acquire at least one arm, and we'll see what happens there. But I think the Orioles should go for it, because their farm system is so stacked and talented that if they trade one or two of those pieces, especially from positions of like high-end depth, it's not going to impact them too much. Like, obviously, like, they're not going to move any of their top prospects, but they have enough depth where they can try to upgrade positions on their major league roster, and it won't impact them too much in the long haul.
Yeah, I really have always liked Jordan Montgomery there. Like, AL East, battle tested, clearly need pitching. Probably not a lot of ace types on the market this year, and another good revenge chance. Like, oh, the Yankees don't think he's good enough to start a playoff game. Well, he was good enough in St. Louis last year. Now maybe he could do it for one of their rivals alongside Aaron Hicks. I've just sort of always thought I mean, not always. When he was on the Yankees, I wasn't like, he should go to the Orioles and kill the Yankees. But at least since they traded him, I've been like, yeah, that feels like a fit.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you, the Aaron, it felt, I don't want to say obvious, but it felt like it was bound to happen that he would have success out in New York.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really tough market. And he was showing signs of life before he got cut by the Yankees too.
Yeah.
Honestly, good for him. And I'm hopeful for him that he can at least keep it up, because he's bounced back in a decent way.
Yeah. Yeah, never gonna happen here. That's why they don't want to cut Josh Donaldson, even though they should. But you know what? That's life, and that's the world that we live in. Cardinals, the market's this thin. Like, I don't think they're going to ultimately trade Nolan Arenado, but Jordan Montgomery, Jordan Hicks, like these are people who I've seen. I saw Cardinals Twitter speculation today that those guys could net top 100 prospects. And I wasn't immediately like, no way. I was kind of like, yeah, 90s, high 80s. Like, that doesn't seem insane.
No, I don't think it does. And like the Cardinal, their position, they got Montgomery last year for Harrison Bader, who's a player that they were quite high on. I mean, defensively, he's very good. Offensively, he left a little bit to be desired, and he struggled with health wise. But they really liked him, and they thought of him as as a player that could be in center field for the long haul. And that was not a small price to pay for Jordan Montgomery. And now we're talking 12 months later, the Cardinals flipping Montgomery and getting, relative pennies compared to what Bader was. So tough, but here's another thing too with them is, as I've said, there's a lack of like high-end depth available on the trade market. So perhaps they could get some team desperate enough for starting pitching to overpay for a guy like Montgomery or even Jack Flaherty.
Well, keep your eyes open because we're getting to crunch time. Jordan Montgomery strikes me as somebody who could maybe even re-sign in St. Louis, so they should very carefully flip him. That one seems pretty obvious. We're figuring out the untouchables for teams that we know are going to sell, like the Cardinals, like the White Sox at this point. Came out this week that there is apparently a group of guys who they don't want to deal. They still believe they have a core, right? But we know they're going to attack the deadline with veracity, and they're going to sell off a lot of unattached pieces. Who do you think is most available in Chicago right now? And who would you deem unavailable? Would you even bring it to the level of untouchable for this team?
I don't think so. I don't think I'd use the word untouchable for any of these players. Even Rick Hahn said a couple years ago in describing the White Sox's trade deadline approach, there are no untouchables. But that being said, I think there are some players that they'd be very, 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 very unlikely to trade. And those guys would be like Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez, Dylan Cease, and Andrew Vaughn. I think those four players are going to be guys that are highly unlikely to be moved. But I do think the White Sox would listen to all players or all inquiries on all players, just because, as I said earlier, like how do I want to phrase this? You never know exactly what team will offer what for a player until you end up hearing what they have to offer. And it does not hurt to listen. All teams listen. That's what they do. Doesn't mean you have to trade a player, but it doesn't hurt to know what's out there. But those four are very unlikely to be traded. But if you're talking likely trade candidates for them, Lucas Giolito seems like almost a sure thing to be moved. Keenan Middleton, who's been kind of a revelation for them, I think is going to end up being on the move too. Under the radar one before he got hurt, I thought was Joe Kelly. But that probably makes a trade pretty unlikely there. But it's a tough spot for Rick Hahn again. And you got to wonder like how aggressive he's going to be here, because it's just a really tough spot. But I think those two in Giolito and Middleton are almost sure things to go. And then they'll get inquiries on a bunch of different players too.
It's tough. Last year, you would have said Reynaldo Lopez was the guy that they stumbled upon, and like, ooh, maybe you're able to maximize that. But 2.76 ERA last year to 4.74 this year. The strikeout numbers are still there. kind of screams like a player that maybe a smart team wants to unlock heading into free agency. Like there's a chance you maybe sell Lopez to the Dodgers, to the Yankees, or some team that gets joy out of picking up a guy with a 4.5 ERA and then turning him around and being like, look, he's doing it again. He's good now. But other than that, yeah, I like that Middleton pull a lot.
I'll tell you, the Lopez Dodgers fit. I had not thought of that until you just said it. I don't hate it. I mean, dude, they need starting pitching in the freaking worst way in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
They need pitching, just period. Bullpen, starting pitching, you name it, they need it. And I wonder if they could end up being a trade fit there. I know, who was it? I think it was John Morosi connected the Dodgers and White Sox as trade partners or like a trade fit earlier today. I think Giolito makes a lot of sense growing up in that area. But we'll see. There's going to be a lot of options that the Dodgers consider. But another thing, too, that I want to say about the Dodgers is under Andrew Friedman, they have been hesitant to acquire or give up much for bullpen pieces. So they could get creative there. Maybe this is the year that they end up trying to get a guy like, I don't know, Scott Barlow. I think that is a player they've had interest in the past. I think they have interest again. But I think they're going to prioritize starting pitching and also another bat for the lineup there too.
Yeah. Barlow, former Dodgers farmhand way back in the day, so they have familiarity organizationally with him too. A lot of good fits. Won't be a Aroldis Chapman. I think at the end of the year, Dodgers fans will have to look back and see whether they're happy they didn't get in that mix early and they let the Rangers go grab him, or whether they ultimately do regret that. You have one more seller that you wanted to mention that is finally ready to go. You'd say with plenty of pieces, I think that are going to intrigue a lot of teams. So what about this club?
The Pittsburgh Pirates. They are a team that I think is ready to have conversations with other teams. They have a few players on expiring contracts, and those players being Rich Hill and Carlos Santana. And I think both players are like legit candidates to be moved in the next couple of weeks. But that being said, I will say this is I don't necessarily know if it's a sure thing. When the Pirates signed both of those players, they viewed those guys not only having an impact on the field, but having an impact in the clubhouse. And they've been good leaders for the young players in that clubhouse. They've taught them how to be major leaguers. They've been sounding boards for them, and they've been extremely valuable. And I know the Pirates really value that. And I don't think they would move them just to move them. I think they're going to actually want like something of value in return. What that looks like, I don't know. But I think those two, they do have a very strong chance of being moved, but I would not guarantee it. From what I gather, I think there's going to be plenty of teams that inquire about David Bednar, their stud reliever. That's happened in the past too, but they have not moved him. I think it would take a pretty sizable haul to get him. So I don't necessarily know how likely that's going to be. And as I've said on this podcast before, and I will say it again, I would not get your hopes up about any Andrew McCutchen trade. I think it is more likely that I date T Swift than Andrew McCutchen is moved. So I think we should just get that thought out of our heads.
When is she coming to Phoenix? Like, I guess if I'm betting on likelihoods, is she coming through town anytime soon or no?
Dude, she was in Phoenix at the start of her tour.
Okay. So
and I didn't go to her concert, and it hurts. Dude, T Swift is my girl. I'm a huge Swiftie, and I refused. And well, I didn't refuse. I went to a different concert instead. Oi, not good. Yeah, I just channeled my inner John Heyman with that oi comment. Yeah.
No, I mean, Taylor Swift is great. I would go see her, but I have to pay a security deposit on an apartment. So I don't think I have $3,000 to drop, but you know what? If a ticket fell into my lap, I would go.
Oh, dude, I'll tell you, I thought about paying a king's ransom for that. Yeah, I'll tell you, Justin, I'm not kidding you. Any publicity is good publicity. If she wants to write a breakup song about me, go on ahead, T Swift.
The bummer is you don't get the second one now, like, because she's already doing the Taylor's version. She already owns her own music, so you don't get like the Dear Rob now and then the Taylor's version in 8 years, so that all of her fans can come back after. You don't get the double whammy.
I'm telling you, she could always make a new line and be like Bert's version.
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
But again, Andrew McCutcheon not getting traded. I think it's probably
Andrew McCutcheon. Yeah, long story short, and actually that was a short story. Long, wait, is that, I don't know. But anyways, Andrew McCutcheon's not being traded. Let's forget about that. Yeah.
David Bednar, Pittsburgh native too. That one always, I'm like, come on. Like, even when let's say the Pirates take a step back next year while they bring up the kids and they're like a 70-win team, you want that Pittsburgh native all-star closer. Somebody go out in the community, sign autographs. Like, that's a tough pill to swallow.
No, that's a very tough pill to swallow. I think both Bednar and McCutcheon are pretty safe from being moved. But other than that, Brian Reynolds ain't being traded after that contract extension either. But no, Rich Hill and Carlos Santana are certainly the guys to watch there for sure.
Another deadline candidate who just so happens to be the All-Star Game MVP, Elias Diaz. You had him, right? You had Vlad Jr. winning the Derby, so you had Elias Diaz as the MVP, right? I forgot. I forgot your prediction.
Wait, say that again.
You had Vlad Jr. winning the Derby, so you had Diaz, the Rockies catcher, winning the All-Star Game MVP too, right? I forget if you had it on the show or just off the show.
I honestly, I can't take credit for that. It was I had Austin Riley. I went for an underdog pick, and I swung and missed on that one. But I did have Vlad Jr. winning the Derby. And who did you go with again? You went with Garcia?
I had the winner of Arozarena Garcia. So my cheap little, right down the middle pick. Technically, we got the finals, but you beat me.
Yeah, not to brag, but I'll be able to hold that over your head for like the next year or so.
I mean, I had two dogs in the fight. I didn't even have the stones to pick the first round. So that's, I get what I deserve.
Yeah, you do. And you watch the film, be better at them. No, I'm just kidding. No, you're doing a wonderful job. But that was big for the brand.
But you like Diaz, who I think was the forgotten NL All-Star for many reasons. I mean, the Rockies are the forgotten NL team. He's the third catcher on the roster. Will Smith getting his All-Star nod steals the headline. Oh, finally, one first-time All-Star Will Smith. That's weird. Diaz is the third catcher. He gets in the game and he drills a Felix Bautista home run deep into left field. He gets to be the MVP. And you kind of like, we've already cut onions in the Rockies clubhouse. We've already said, the video of him getting named to the team. He's crying. Everyone's crying. It's great. They love him there. But you kind of like him as a potential deadline mover.
Yes, I do. I think he is a sneaky, very underrated trade candidate that the Rockies should listen on. He is at a breakout year. He signed for a couple of years so they could get some pretty good value in return. And there's plenty of teams who need catching depth. I don't know if the Padres are going to be buyers. We don't know what they're going to be because they're in a really strange position. But they need a catcher. The Guardians could use a catcher. There's plenty of teams here that could use catching, and they could end up getting something pretty valuable in return, especially considering his contract. He's signed for 3 years, $14.5 million, which is a relative bargain compared to what that value is. I think the Rockies should absolutely listen. Do I know if they will? I don't. But that's somebody that they should highly entertain trading. And it's strange, too, because they've been a team in the past. They've had some obvious trade candidates like Daniel Bard last year. Still think they should move to a guy like CJ Cron. They've held on to those guys. And it didn't, well, Bard's case, in a bunch of different cases, it hasn't worked out. I think this should be the year that they very much entertain moving some of those guys.
The other All-Star storyline, by the way, just to talk to the fine people of Seattle, great hosts, but somebody yelled at Felix Bautista, like, hey, Felix, like, can you tell the Orioles social media team not to call you King Felix? Like, can you just tell them to stop that? Like, that's Felix Hernandez's nickname. You know that, right? And he was kind of like, yeah, cool. Like, whichever media member went on the field to yell at Felix Bautista about some tweet the Orioles trolled the Mariners over in mid-June, get off the field.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about this is that media member has to be a lot better because he made himself look like an absolute freaking clown.
Yeah.
There you go. I don't usually talk like that, but I have spoken.
That's it. We've spoken. That's it. We've simply spoken. I enjoy the All-Star festivities. A lot of the hatred for the jerseys, I thought was kind of misplaced. For some reason, people are like, you can't wear black pants with the dark. I thought that looked fine. My only problem is we had this right. We already got this right, and then we got it wrong. We used to do the cool local warm-up jerseys for the home run derby, and then the team jerseys for the All-Star game. And a lot of people were like, bring back the team jerseys. Don't get rid of the warm-up jerseys. They installed the warm-up jerseys in the All-Star game. It makes the players look more anonymous. People are like, well, you got to sell jerseys. I know, but if you have them in the home run derby, you can sell both. We did this for 20 years. Let's just do it again. We had it right.
No, exactly. And I'll tell you, man, like some of that stuff at the All-Star game has been very strange. And like another one too, and I know you want to end up getting into this, is the players that are mic'd up during all this is like, I'm stealing your take. Adam was the one who came up with this take. I want to give him credit for this. I don't want to step on his toes, but having players mic'd up, good thing. Position players, good thing. But pitchers, not such a good thing. Like that, what was it? It was Nathan Eovaldi is who it was. Kind of a disaster. I felt bad for him because it just, in times like that, it can feel really awkward and really forced. There's times where it can be really cool. It can be really engaging, especially when you hear, I think there was a case, not during the All-Star game, but like previously, of like Freddie Freeman at first base. And you could hear his conversations with guys at first, or talking to a shortstop, and as they're making a play, like they're talking through it, and it can be really insightful. But you got to pick and choose who those guys are, because it can be either really good or it can be really freaking bad.
Yeah, they had Freeman and Betts mic'd up at some point during the game together. That was fun, as Justin's talking about in the comments. They had, at one point, Eovaldi was throwing and the batter was also mic'd up. And so it was like, if he hears what Evaldi's saying, he'll know what pitches he's throwing. This is obviously an all-star game, but still, it just like this isn't really a competition. It doesn't matter anymore. There's no home field advantage, but it's distracting and odd. And Eovaldi at one point shanked a full count pitch, I think, or at least ball 4. And he kind of was like, ugh. And at that moment, I was like, I know he wants to swear, but even if he doesn't, like, I don't need a mic so that I can hear the pitcher loudly angered at himself for blowing a pitch and yanking it into the dirt. It was just strange. And he would sort of pace around and not really talk to them for a while, and then kind of be like, yeah. No. Yeah. Because he remembered there was a voice in his head. Like all around kind of weird. Doesn't work.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work at all. I felt bad for him. Thankfully, in the All-Star game, you don't have to pitch too much. So you only have to deal with that for a short amount of time. But yeah, I bet you they will not be doing that again with the starting pitcher.
I miss the old jerseys. I do like what we saw. I will call out. I know this is the largest platform I have. We used to be a proper country. They used to have hats in the All-Star game from 98, 2002 with signatures on the side. Every player had their own hat. They would wear a hat with the All-Star patch and their signature in fabric. It was cool as hell. It was just their team's hat with a signature on the side. I am constantly begging for MLB to bring that back. It was great. It was a way more interesting collector's item than a Yankees hat in seafoam green. But 2, if anyone is selling those, please sell them to me. I have very few. I cherish them greatly. Somebody put up a Rolando Araujo hat, the Rays All-Star in 98, on eBay the night of the All-Star game. I saw it and I went, you got to be kidding me. I've never seen anything like this. I need this. The guy freaked me out. He put a starting bid on it and a make offer button. And I was like, can I just bid, or does he want me to talk to him, or like, what's the deal with this? So I messaged him, hey, this is sick. Where did you get this? Hoping to spark a conversation. Somebody bought it. Somebody freaking bought it out from under me. I messaged the seller back immediately. I will double what the buyer paid. He ignored me. So if you are a Baseball Insiders listener and you bought that, sell it to me, please. I want it.
My only official comment is listen to Adam. Yeah,
I want it.
Get him his hat that he wants, please.
Somebody really paid more than $20 for that? Like, really? I mean, I will, but like somebody else? Okay, cool.
Hey, people, I mean, I don't know, man. Hey, you apparently you have very good taste in hats. That's what I'm gathering from this conversation.
Apparently, I'm not giving up the fight, and we're not giving up the time slot. We will be back on the Baseball Insiders next Monday and next Thursday as the deadline creeps ever closer. The promo again today, Baseball In on Bet365. If you don't have an account, now is the perfect time to sign up. Just deposit that initial money, bet $1 on any sport. The deposit is $10, and you will instantly receive $200 added to your account. In those bonus bets, whether you win or lose, again, that code Baseball In on Bet365. You help us out. We help you out. Until next time, I'm Adam Weinrib. Robert Murray, this is a pretty good show. We helped define some teams' trade deadline legacies, I think.
We did. It was a very productive show, and we're only going to get more insight here in the next couple of weeks. So make sure you tune into the Baseball Insiders, please. Everybody, thank you for commenting, for being part of the show. Adam, thank you. Joanne, thank you. Thank you, everybody. See you Monday, Adam?
Yeah, I'll see you Monday. On behalf of Robert, producer Joanne, and the crew, thanks to everybody. We'll see you then.
Thank you, everybody.